All right, everybody, welcome back. We are diving deep today
Diving deep.
into malware analysis
Yeah.
and more specifically,
Mm-hmm.
a tool called SCEMUS.
Yeah.
So this tool,
It's a cool one.
yeah, and it's not just some theoretical
Right.
concept that we're talking about here. This is a tool that's being actively used to analyze
Yeah.
and like reverse engineer
Mm-hmm.
really complex malware and
Real world threats.
real world threats,
Yeah.
like stuff like Bumblebee and Mars Stealer. So
Absolutely.
this is frontline stuff
Yeah.
that we're talking about here. And
Yeah, and the cool thing about a CMU is that
Yeah.
it was born out of necessity.
oh, really?
It wasn't like a big
Okay.
tech company or anything like that decided to
Right.
develop this tool.
Yeah.
This was actually a malware analyst who
Yeah.
needed something to help them
Yeah.
deal with some of these increasingly complex threats.
That they were seeing, and especially malware
Yeah.
that was using custom cryptography.
Okay. Let's back up for a second.
Sure.
What exactly is SCEMU?
Yeah. So at its
Like how would you explain it to somebody?
core, SCEMU is an by86 emulator
Okay.
written entirely in Rust.
Okay.
So if you think of it like a
Gotcha.
virtual
Okay.
computer processor,
Okay.
so it's
Designed specifically for
it's like simulating
yes.
a computer processor
Yes, specifically
to be able to
Windows malware.
run this code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And you said it's written in Rust.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a lot about Rust.
Yeah.
I know it's becoming kind of like
It's becoming a very
it's clever.
popular language in the security space.
Yeah, yeah.
And for good reason.
What is it about Rust that makes
Yeah.
it so good for security applications?
So Rust is renowned for its memory safety features.
Okay.
And that means that it prevents a whole class of vulnerabilities that you would normally see
Gotcha.
in other languages like C or C++.
Right.
So, when you're dealing with
You
potentially
don't want your tools to
malicious code.
Great. Yeah. You want to be absolutely sure
Right, yeah.
that the tools that you're using to
Yeah.
analyze this code aren't going to be
Yeah.
vulnerable themselves.
So it's like extra important.
It is.
Exactly when you're dealing with something that's already potentially malicious
Mhm.
to not have.
You want to introduce more problems.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this really solid foundation, with this emulator
Yeah.
written in Rust, and it's designed for Windows malware.
Yep.
What sets it apart
Okay.
from other tools that malware analysts
Good question.
might use? So one of the really cool things about SCEMU
Okay.
is it's not just emulating the instructions,
Okay.
it's actually simulating a full Windows process.
Wow. So it's like
So that includes things like the memory structure.
it's recreating the whole operating system.
Exactly. And it's even simulating the Windows API.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Windows API, that's like the set of like functions
Yes.
that programs can use to interact with what
Absolutely.
operating system, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what that means is that an analyst can actually run
Wow.
malware within a SCEMU
Oh.
and observe its behavior as if it were running on a
Okay.
real system.
So it's like a safe environment to be able
in a
to
safe, controlled environment.
actually execute this task.
Code. You're not actually going to get
Wow. Okay.
infected by
That's pretty cool.
malware.
That's malware. I've also heard that SCU
Yeah.
is surprisingly good
Yeah.
at unpacking malware.
This is one of the things that I
Yeah.
think is really fascinating about
Yeah.
the SCEMU because it wasn't originally designed to do this.
Okay.
It was kind of a happy accident that it turned
Interesting.
out to be so good at it.
So how is it good at unpacking malware?
So it's been very effective at unpacking things like Metasploit encoders.
Okay.
And what a Metasploit encoder does
Okay.
is essentially it's used to obfuscate
Oh,
the malware and make it harder.
So like
to-
hide what the codes.
Yeah,
are
exactly.
for.
To make it harder to understand
Right.
what the code is doing.
Going.
And what SCEMU does is it can actually emulate that
right.
decoding routine that the Metasploit encoder is doing and essentially strip
So like peeling back
away those layers of
the
obfuscation.
layers of the onion until you get to
Exactly.
the actual code.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So unpacking is cool,
It is cool.
but it sounds like unpacking isn't really like CMU's main strength.
Yeah, it's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
But the real forte, okay,
Of SCEMU is its ability to help analysts decrypt
okay,
custom cryptography.
So like if malware is using its own
Exactly.
encryption scheme.
A lot of malware will use their own
Yeah.
unique encryption schemes
Right.
to hide the malicious payload.
Okay, so like how would that
And what SCEMU allows analysts to do
work in practice?
is to reverse engineer and break those encryption schemes.
Huh.
So, for example, let's say we have a piece of malware
Yeah.
that uses a custom encryption algorithm to protect its command and control server address.
Okay.
So it's, it's going to use this encryption to hide where it's going to call back to receive instructions.
Okay.
With SCEMU.
Okay.
We could set breakpoints at specific instructions.
Okay.
We can examine the state of the registers in memory as that decryption routine is executing.
So it's like watch it.
And ultimately extract the key.
Step by step.
And decrypt that server address.
What's happening?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, obviously before you can even get to that point, you need to set the stage right.
Right.
Like you're not just going to throw the malware into SCEMU and expect it to just work perfectly.
You need to prepare context for this malware to run.
Prepare the context.
So you need to carefully emulate the environment that this malware is expecting to find when it runs.
Okay, if it's
And so that could involve things like setting up specific registry keys, initializing variables with particular values, or even emulating the behavior of certain Windows API functions that this malware is relying on.
So it's like you're
essentially building a custom stage.
Building the stage for the malware to perform on.
For this malware to run on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's a real art to being able to do that.
It takes a lot of experience and understanding of both the Windows operating system and the malware's inner workings to really do that effectively.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Python API.
Yeah.
SCEMU.
This is really cool.
So I hear this is like a real game changer for reverse engineers.
Yeah.
So why is that?
While SCEMU can be used through its command line interface, or you can use it directly within Rust applications, the Python API, which is called PySCEMU, really opens up a world of possibilities for reverse engineers.
What?
Yeah. Specifically. So it gives you fine-grained control over the emulation process. You can easily create and manage memory buffers. You can read and write to specific memory locations. And you can even re-implement Windows API functions.
Wow.
To control the flow of execution.
So like if you wanted to force the malware to take a specific branch, you could actually...
Imagine you want to force the malware...
manipulate that through the...
to take a specific branch in its code.
API.
You could actually do that by manipulating its interaction with the Windows API.
Wow. So it's like you really have like puppet master control over this.
Yeah, you have very fine-grained control.
Okay. This has been a really awesome deep dive. I think it's really clear that
fascinating tool.
The CBU is like a really remarkable tool.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a second and think about, our listener who might not be a malware analyst. Why should they care about all of this?
Well, the reality is that everyone is affected by malware in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It is a global threat that costs businesses and individuals billions of dollars every year.
It's like an invisible...
And so tools like SCEMU are on the front lines of that fight. They give cybersecurity professionals the ability to understand and dismantle these threats.
And the better...
which ultimately leads...
The tools we have, the better defenses.
That's able to defend.
And a safer digital world.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, this has been a great deep dive.
It has been.
Into SCEMU.
Yeah.
We start off talking about how it's born out of necessity. It's developed by an analyst who needed a tool like this. And now it's really pushing the boundaries of what's possible in this field. And it makes me wonder, how do you think tools like SCEMU will continue to shape the future of malware analysis?
I think...
how are we going to have to continue to evolve?
Or defensive strategies to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. As the attackers evolve their techniques,
that's something
the defenders need to think about.
Evolve their techniques.
Well, until next time.
Yeah.
Happy deep diving.
Happy deep diving.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.